you're a barrier breaker. You were the first Redhead to win the Miss England title, correct?
Yes.
And whilst preparing for this interview, I stumbled upon an article where you'd bravely shared that you used to get picked on at school because of your red hair. Can I just say you've got beautiful, amazing long hair?
Thank you. It's
It's
not been brushed today because I forgot my brush.
It looks amazing. Hey guys, welcome back to another inSTEM podcast episode. I'm your host Tolu, and as always, I'm excited to bring you a conversation that is packed with value, tips for personal and professional growth, and real actionable insight with real people. On this beautiful summer day in London, I'm so excited to have with me in the guest seat former Miss England, former Miss United Kingdom, and former Miss Europe. And get this, she's an aerospace engineer too. Please join me in welcoming the absolute brains and beauty that is Jessica Ashley Gagen.
Thank you.
It's great to have you, Jessica.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I've been so excited for this.
And I'm just so excited to have former Miss United Kingdom, Miss Europe, and all of these amazing titles and inSTEM as well. Yeah, join us in listening to her amazing journey, how she balances multiple passions, and the amazing efforts she's leading to inspire the next generation of STEM leaders. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it, yeah.
Right, so we're starting with an icebreaker question. Mm-hmm. And given, as I said during the introduction, given that you bring together these two fascinating worlds of aerospace engineering and beauty, I was wondering, what is the coolest or most pinch me moment you've ever had in either of these worlds?
Oh gosh, so I would say kind of a little bit of a combination of both. Okay. But back in 2023, I got a message via Instagram from somebody who worked for the ISS National Lab out in Florida. So ISS being the International Space Station. And I was invited out to Las Vegas to attend a space conference. I was also speaking at that conference, and I got to meet and interview a lot of astronauts. And then after being at that conference, I was flown out to Florida, and then I was toured around NASA's and Boeing's facilities, learning all about Starliner and just different things, history elements of NASA. I got to go into the crawler, which is what they would transport the rockets out from the VAB to the launch pad. And I was literally just there in Florida, a girl from Skelmersdale, thinking, how on earth did I end up here? This is great.
Wow,
and the reason that I got there was because of the advocacy and the platform, and obviously having an education in aerospace engineering. It was just all kind of compiled together. And I don't think one would have happened without the other, forming the brand, which obviously then took me out there. So I would say it was possibly that. That was a bit crazy.
That sounds incredibly cool. And I just want to spend a day in your world because it just sounds so exciting. And I was going to say that I got the opportunity to go to the NASA Center in Houston a couple of months ago.
Wow.
And I just thought it was like one of the coolest places. So the fact that you actually got to immerse yourself in those experiences and actually get to speak to astronauts sounds really cool. That is a definite really cool moment. So moving on to your career now. So it's amazing. It's actually really fascinating that you pursue a career in aerospace engineering, given your dominance of the world of beauty and pageantry. And I wondered what came first, and also what sparked your interest in aerospace engineering.
So this is kind of a complex question because I was kind of in fashion and modelling, then out of it, in it, out of it. So I actually started modelling when I was 15.
Right.
I hadn't even done my GCSEs yet.
Yeah.
So that's been the most constant thing in my life. And after being in school and doing my A-levels, I did do a little bit of modelling alongside, and then I went into it full-time after I did my A-levels because I didn't know what I wanted to be. And I thought, I'll just try this. I've got an opportunity to. And so I did for a few years. And then when I got into my early 20s, I thought, I don't think this is going to last forever for me. And don't get me wrong, it provided me with some crazy opportunities. I got to travel with it, meet lots of different cool people all over the world. But I thought I need to have a solid backup because I don't want to let it kind of trail off and then get towards my late 20s or my 30s, whenever it may be, and then think, right, I really need to do something else, but I've kind of cornered myself. When I knew I had a capability to at least try and make both work at the same time. And so I decided to do an aerospace engineering degree, which everybody was slightly shocked at. I remember telling my model bookers at one of my agencies that I was going to go to university, and they're like, oh, what are you going to study? And I think they expected me to say maybe like fashion marketing or something
the
very
obvious ones,
something based on the industry I've been working in that for like 7 years at that point. And I was like, oh no, I just fancy a bit of rocket science. So
love that.
I picked aerospace engineering mostly because I still didn't know what I wanted to do, didn't know what I wanted to be, but I knew that this degree would give me a lot of skills, which would give me a lot of options, and I didn't have to make the decision there and then. I wasn't really going to tunnel myself into anything, because with any STEM degree, but especially with an engineering degree, there are so many options and you are quite employable. So I thought, right, I'll do the engineering degree. And it was only when I was in my first year, was it my first year? I think so. Yeah, my first year, it was my second year of aerospace engineering that I got scouted for the Miss Lancashire contest. And I was scouted via Instagram because I was making social media content aimed to get more girls interested in aerospace engineering and STEM, just because I'd noticed there wasn't that many girls on my course. Now, that didn't really bother me, but I thought, I didn't realise when I was younger everything that this entailed. I thought being an engineer meant working on a lathe in overalls for the rest of your life. And so when I was younger, I wasn't interested because that was my vision of it. And that's what I'd been exposed to. So, of course, that's what I was going to think that's all it entailed. And it was only having done my own research, I thought, whoa, loads you can do here. This is great. I then started making the content. It got me scouted for the Miss Lancashire contest. And I was really apprehensive because I had a very archaic view of what pageantry was. And I think that's due to the press and the media in the UK like to convey that same narrative. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I was first scouted for Miss Lancashire, I looked at my phone and I was like, I don't really think that's for me.
That's so interesting. Even though you'd worked in fashion and beauty prior to that.
They're very different, because being the model, it's more about, for me, I was a commercial model, so it was all about selling a product. I used to work for brands like Matalan and Regatta, Asda, Tesco, all your kind of day-to-day brands were the brands I used to model for. And then I got scouted for this contest, and I thought that it was basically walking on stage and having your measurements called out, and I thought, no, I'm not interested in like a contest which is crowning me as the most beautiful, because I'm so much more than what I look like. Which is ironic, I know, coming from an industry where I was validated for what I looked like. But no, they spoke to me and they said, no, this is about advocacy. It's about having a voice, and it's about inspiring the next generation.
Absolutely.
And so I looked into it and I thought, you know what, actually, I could really use this platform to inspire more girls in STEM, because I knew that there were press connections there. So long story short, over the course of a few years, I won Miss Lancashire and was then automatically in Miss England, which I won, and then was automatically a Miss World. And at Miss World, I did very well, and I won Miss World Europe, and then by default became Miss UK, because I was the highest placed and out of the UK girls too. And I used all of the press connections to further my STEM message, get more girls interested in STEM. And I met so many people on that journey, so many influential figures, government figures, celebrities. I met the Mandela family. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah, the Miss World contest is so highly thought of and respected in different countries for the amount of work that goes into forwarding the work of charities and things like that. So that was a crazy journey.
Wow.
So that was a really long way to answer your question.
I love it. What an incredibly beautiful story. I think there are so many takeaways for me. The first one is the importance of genuine motives. I see that consistent across the story, just wanting to, go into it because you saw it as an opportunity to show, young girls what they could do, but also like the fact that you were using your Instagram platform to showcase, your interests as well. And I think also the other thing, which is connected to the first point, is just really embracing your passions and interests and fostering them. I think those are the really two key points that stand out to me in your story. And I think, people should pay attention to those things, because it started with, some a regional level contest, which then became global and exposed you to, Nelson Mandela's family. It doesn't get better than that, right?
Honestly, like that, I've met royalty. I've met, obviously, that family. I've met presidents in different countries because I was in Miss World, and Miss World is so highly regarded around the world. Not as much in the UK, unfortunately, and I think that's due to the media's narrative might be slightly outdated. And obviously I had a lot of presumptions before being in the contest based on what I'd heard through media. So only when I was educated I thought, wow, we are missing out by obviously not publicising this for everything that it is. And so, I thought, I want to do that. I can be a role model to lots of young girls, and I can inspire the next generation. And so, Miss World has a lot of pulling power across the world in different countries, especially throughout Asia and Africa. And I was so blessed to have a campaign which a lot of people really liked, and to do well in the contest, and get all of the opportunities to travel around the world, interview around the world, and meet all of these very influential people in their own right, to further the cause.
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a dream.
And I think the third key takeaway point for me is your willingness to adapt your mindset. Once you learned about it and saw there was more of an opportunity to, learn more, inspire more people, as opposed to holding on to the parochial views that the media had conveyed and, making it out to be just a purely superficial thing. I think it's also something that we should embrace as humans, be open-minded, learn about it, and feel free to drop the mindsets that aren't actually consistent with, what that thing is truly about once you've learned a little bit more about it. So I love that about your story as well.
Thank you. I completely agree. I think it's up to ourselves to educate about something that we're passionate about. And I took it as a big responsibility when I was Miss England, knowing that a lot of people had outdated views about the platform and the title. I took it personally as my responsibility to educate not only the next generation, but educate my generation about everything I was doing and why it was worthwhile. Because the question I used to get more than anything was, oh my gosh, why you training to become an aerospace engineer? Why do you want to be Miss England? And I was like, this is why. And I think that's why my story blew up in the press so much as well, because they were polar opposite worlds. And I was like, no, I can be both. I want to be both.
What a beautiful story. And we're blessed to have people like you, dominating those two different worlds as well.
Thank you.
And being a great example for the next generation. I think the next question is a natural follow-up, actually. And is one we took from a community poll that we did. We said, we're having this amazing person come on our podcast, and we'd like you to ask a question. So the question I liked the most was, of course, as you've said, the two worlds come across as polar opposites, but as I've, and I'm sure you've dug deeper, there are probably connecting dots and also synergies between the two worlds. What skills have you been able to take from maybe beauty into aerospace engineering and vice versa as well?
This is a great question. And I think this also amplifies the fact that experience is so important. Your education is important, yes, but experience really will give you that leading edge, to use an aerospace pun. I didn't mean that, honestly. So I would say that through my experience, I was having to network and talk a lot and travel. And even if I go right back to my teenage years when I was modelling, before any of the Miss World stuff started, I was having to travel abroad to countries where I couldn't speak the language on my own. And this is before I had much 5G on my phone. So I literally used to screenshot maps and kind of direct myself to castings and just try and navigate it myself. So the first skill there was I became very independent at quite a young age, which meant that I was going to be more confident walking into rooms of people that I didn't know, which is exactly the situation I was going to be in years later when I was going for my first professional job, because I'd been exposed to it already. And so that's one of the skills. Another one is being able to communicate and network, not only just with people who are like you, but
Yeah.
people who are older than you, people who have lived different lives.
That's a great point.
It really is. It's so important. Your network is your net worth.
Yes,
so you
I love
need
that.
you need to be able to communicate with a lot
Yeah.
of people,
Yeah.
and that's really going to help you out. I mean, even when I was in university first year, I remember connecting with different people who'd been to my university previously, and they'd been working in their companies for years and years, and I was asking them for advice. I used to call different people. I remember having a conversation with somebody in my first year, and after talking with her on the phone, she said, I want you on my team. I think you would make a great integration engineer. You can bridge the gap between engineers and non-engineers. And when it comes to applying for jobs, please get in contact with me because I want to walk you through that interview. I want you on my team. And I thought, wow,
That's amazing.
what a compliment.
Yeah.
So being able to talk is really,
I could not agree more.
really an important skill. It's great to be fantastic at your degree and your education. It does play a part, but more than anything, your ability to communicate with different people does. So having the experience through modelling first, then being Miss England and in Miss World, you have to be very punctual. Last minute, you are pulled for things. Like I had it once where I was told I was going to India the next day, and that wouldn't stress me out
Because you've been doing this.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, you're used to it.
But other people would be like, oh my gosh, how can I do this? Where,
Flustered. And,
I landed on this one particular trip. I landed into India, got to my hotel at 3:30 in the morning. My call time was 6 a.m. And I hadn't slept on the flight.
Wow.
So I got to my
Sounds
hotel,
intense.
had 1 hour sleep, showered up, ready, presentable, straight on a plane to somewhere else in India, into a conference. And that was my first experience with being with the wider Miss World organisation. And I was just sat there at this press conference. It was in Kashmir. So it was a pleasure to obviously get to experience that region as well. And I remember being sat there really tired.
I can imagine.
And I had probably about maybe 30, 40 cameras in front of me at this press conference and was asked about the history of Kashmir. And you have to think in that moment as well, what can I say which isn't going to offend anyone, which is going to complement the region, especially when I haven't even actually seen it because I just got there. So you have to be very wise with your words and thinking ahead. So all of those skills I then implemented when it came to going for my job now, and also every day in my job because I meet a lot of people.
That's amazing, Jessica. So independence and communication and networking. But what's really important about that second point is we're not talking surface level communication, we're talking strategic, tactful communication. And I love the point you mentioned about networking as well, is the ability to carry yourself amongst different contexts, so like different cultures and different age, groups and so on. I think amazingly important, and I'm sure, as you've said and conveyed, has given you an edge in your aerospace engineering career. So it's great to see those synergies and those transferable skills.
I think if I could add a tail end to the subject, it would be, it's really important to learn about as much as you can before you're obviously talking to a person, if you have the option to. But if not, if you can give yourself a base of knowledge of where you are or the region that you're in, if it's somewhere different. As I say, for me, I had a lot of travelling involved with my life as Miss England. What I used to do when I got to different regions was I would Google the foods of that region and specific cultural elements of that region, and basically teach myself as briefly as I could what I would need to know in order to make a conversation with somebody about their region, because everybody likes to talk about themselves and I want to be able to join in that conversation. And if I'm literally traveling from one culture to the next, I think it's really important for me to be able to understand how different people live and why things are done certain ways. It's a compliment more than anything to be able to experience a different culture. So I found it my duty I need to get to know this. And then also that would then form an icebreaker whenever I was somewhere that I didn't really know. And especially, I was very lucky to go to India. I've been there 4 times now. But the first thing I actually did when I was on my first flight out to India was try everything traditional on the aeroplane food menu.
Okay, well, it's a great starting point, right?
And I remember falling in love with this Indian dessert. If you Google any interviews I've done in India, you'll see that I mention this dessert all the time.
Okay.
They have a dessert called gulab jamun. First
Okay.
time I tried it was on the plane going out to India. And then after that, I remember somebody asking me, what's your favourite thing about India? And I was like, well, I love the colour of the country. I love how welcoming the people are, how accommodating. But I also love gulab jamun. And people used to laugh at that, but it would break the ice. And then straight away, it's like you're talking to a friend.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's such an excellent tip. And I can imagine it comes across very simple, like, you know, to just do a bit of research about where you're going. But I think it's it can be so powerful, as you've conveyed, like in helping people realize that you truly appreciate their culture, but also forming that connection with them. I think it's such a great networking tip, actually, that, you know, people need to be more cognizant of. I think it's often overlooked. You know, we're very conscious about what we want to say about ourselves, but what do you know about the person, and what do you want to bring out, you know, when you're speaking to the person? What can you do in advance to find out a little bit more about the context of the individuals that you're going to be meeting?
Yeah, especially because aerospace engineering is such an international world.
Yes.
And so if I'm going to a conference which is about aerospace or aviation, I can talk about aerospace and aviation things, which is great, but I'm not necessarily going to be in that environment all the time. And that's why I think it's important, if I am somewhere else in the world for whatever reason, it may be aerospace related, it might not be. I should be able to make conversation with people about other things, because I can't expect everybody to have the same industry knowledge as me. And so I think that's why it's really important to do a little bit of research first, learn food, culture as best as you can. People aren't expecting you to be an expert, they also want to teach you. But if you can break the ice with that and show a common interest, straight away you've formed a pathway of conversation. That's
excellent tip.
Big tip.
That's an excellent
Google
tip.
the food before you go abroad.
Google the food. I love that. Awesome. I love so many aspects of your story. I particularly love that you are the testament to the idea that you don't have to put yourself in one box. And I can imagine that those watching and listening must be thinking, that's amazing, but how does she actually do that? So for someone listening and thinking, do I need to choose between these two seemingly conflicting passions, what would you say to them?
I would say you absolutely don't. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be times in your life where you have to prioritize certain things, but you can do things in your own order. I only started my degree when I was 24. And
wow.
And
that's amazing.
I've had a lot of people say, oh my gosh, like, how did you do both? And it was because I did one primarily first, then the degree, then the Miss England stuff happened at the same time. And I always say to young children when I speak to them, I've met so many people over the course of my life now, with the experiences I've been lucky to have, who do a lot of different things. And typically I had this vision that if I was an aerospace engineer, I had to live and breathe it, and I was an aerospace engineer. But actually I've come to realise that this is my life. I dictate what happens. I'm running the show. And so if I don't know anybody who's been, for instance, in my case, an aerospace engineer and a model and Miss England, I can be the first at that.
I love that mindset.
Someone has to be the first.
Yeah.
You know, somebody was the first female astronaut, or
exactly.
someone was the first male fashion director, or whatever instance you can think of. Somebody had to be the first in order to inspire. And so that's how I've always lived my life. And I've met people with backgrounds in STEM who do so many different things. People who are massively successful in sport but have a background in STEM, and then when they finish, they then go back into STEM or whatever they want to do, but they've managed to do both. I know a lot of people who've done that with lots of different industries. Myself, it was fashion, and then obviously pageantry, which was an accident. I wasn't expecting to get scouted. But yeah, I would say you can be the first.
Yeah, I love that mindset. I think that's such a powerful and bold mindset that we all need to embrace more. I want to shift gears a bit now into embracing our uniqueness. So you're a barrier breaker. You were the first Redhead to win the Miss England title, correct?
Yes.
And whilst preparing for this interview, I stumbled upon an article where you'd bravely shared that you had you used to get picked on at school because of your red hair. Can I just say you've got beautiful, amazing long hair?
Thank you. It's not been brushed today because I forgot my brush.
It looks amazing. So why
you.
anyone would pick on you is I don't understand. But these things happen, as we know. And given that you went from that to using that very identity to actually winning the Miss, or that forming part of your Miss England identity, shows to me a great transformational journey. And I wondered whether you could talk a little bit more about that journey, of going from being picked on to being, someone who's won all of these titles, who is succeeding in their STEM, aerospace engineering career, and inspiring many others along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. So I want to convey the message as well, because the media would never convey a positive and negative narrative at the same time. Yeah. I did have good times in my school as well. Yeah. And I used to I think I was very lucky because I realised very early that, little comments that I used to hear in the corridors in school, or if anybody said anything about my hair, I used to think, they're not being malicious, they're trying to fit in. And so that became my mindset. It used to affect me, and I used to get quite upset if people would pick on me for my hair colour or say anything which related to my hair. I used to think, I was just born like this, leave me alone. Why is it okay for you to say that to me but not to somebody else for whatever reason? And so I learned very quickly that a lot of the time, especially when you're in your early teenage years in school, people are trying to fit in. There's a little bit of a social hierarchy, and everybody's changing, and you're learning so much at that age. And I was, I think, quite switched on and quite knowledgeable to realise that people aren't being malicious here. They're trying to get laughs from their friends. And so that was an easy way for me to kind of block out any kind of negative which would be affecting me. And then I've never dyed my hair, even though I did want to when I was in school, because I thought it would make me fit in. So glad I didn't.
That's amazing.
So much cheaper for me to have my hair done. And then it was years down the line, I didn't actually realise that there had never been a Redhead Miss England. And it was actually the national director who had pointed this out to me, and a regional director had mentioned it as well and said, I don't know if there's ever been a Redhead Miss England. And I'm quite a competitive person, and based on what I've just said in your previous question, I thought, I can be the first. I can be the first. I can do this. I know I have it in me to do this. And this wasn't any way to validate that red hair was beautiful, which it is. I'm biased, I think it is. I wasn't using it for that reason, because for me, those types of contests, Miss England, isn't necessarily about that. It's about having purpose. It might have used to have been about that, but now it's about having purpose and following your passion and inspiring other people. But I thought, if I am that person who is lucky enough to win the title, have access to media and the ability to inspire people on a wider level, if people can see a redhead doing that, for any other redheads who are going through similar, they can see somebody that looks like them. And when I was younger, I always used to look for people that looked like me on TV and in the media. If I saw somebody with red hair on the TV, I'd think, is their hair dyed? And you're thinking about whether this person has gone through similar things to you, somebody that you can resonate with. And I always remember Nicola Roberts in Girls Aloud, when she was in Girls Aloud, that was like, wow, a real redhead on the big screen. And so I just wanted to be that person that other kids with red hair could look up to more than anything.
That's amazing. I'm so glad. I love the consistent mindset of I can be the first.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. I absolutely love that. And I think for young girls as well, or actually starting with, as a female engineer, because I'm an engineer myself, another aspect that really resonates with me in your story is I consider myself to be a girly girl. I say you're a girly girl. It's the idea that you can be a girly girl and love rockets. You can be a girly girl and in my case love chemical reactions.
Yeah.
And I feel that messaging is very consistent in the STEM advocacy work that you do. Why is that message important to you?
I think it's really important because exposure inspires people.
Yeah.
And I've used this example quite a few times, but I use a hairdryer every day. And so for me, the idea of a hairdryer which doesn't make any noise at all is probably going to occur to me before somebody who doesn't use a hairdryer every day, because they're not exposed to it. And so that's why it's really important to have different minds and people of different backgrounds in STEM, because it's what we're exposed to which guides how we think.
Yes.
And that's why I think it's really important to show the next generation, and especially young girls, that throughout my life anyway, I've always felt like rockets and cars have been seen as very boy things.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's fine, but they can be girl things too. Just how boys can like makeup.
Yeah.
You know, like it's some kind of societal rule that puts people into boxes. And if I'm lucky enough to be able to inspire kids from a young age, and they can see, you know, a girl who's very feminine in a nice pretty dress in front of people talking about space, they think, oh wow, yeah, that's for me too. And so whenever I am in a room of people, or I'm going to be on some kind of TV show, or whatever the opportunity may be, if I'm going to be seen by younger girls, I typically like to dress quite brightly, because
similarly
because it diminishes the narrative that you have to be in like a dark grey or black, very kind of like monotone outfit to fit into a particular industry. I have met so many inspiring people in this industry, so many lovely girls, and so I then try to show younger girls, you can be sparkly and you can still be a scientist and an engineer.
I love that. No, that's amazing. That's amazing. And we're going to move on to the last question now. You've got so much going on for you: aerospace engineering, STEM advocacy, you're a beauty ambassador as well, and so much more. What's on the horizon for you? What are you most excited about?
I am most excited to make moves within my career because I'm fresh into the industry, so I'm still learning a lot. I'm very new. So I'm excited to learn more about specifically what it is that I'm doing and meet a lot of people along the way. I would also love to study a master's degree where I am focused on cleaner energy for aviation, because it's something which I find really interesting myself, and I would love to do some research which could then be used to benefit the industry that I'm working in. So that's something I would love to do. And in general, just excited for what opportunities come next and the people that I get to meet along the way. Saying yes to this kind of opportunity is great.
Yes, and it's such an honour to have you on this platform as well.
Honestly, it's an honour to be here. Being asked to speak is so nice. So.
And you're an amazing public speaker, by the way, which obviously it comes as no surprise. But I love the fact that you're very impact driven. I feel like what's been the consistent thread across your answers today has been impact. You know, you've got that, at the forefront of everything that you do, and it just makes everything that you do so meaningful. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the platform. I've learned so much, and I can imagine those watching and listening will have taken a lot out of this conversation as well. So thank you for coming on board, and see you in the next episode.